I'm going to hit record. And Good evening. This is the Mountain Zoom series, and this is our first session for 2025. And we want to welcome you in. Tonight we have Mr. Reed Graham, who is the Breathitt County Extension Agent for Ag and Natural Resources. And Reed has just a little bit of experience in the firewood business. He and his wife have a side gig where they do firewood. And we also have Jeremy Williams with us, the Harlan County Ag Agent, and Phil Meeks, who is the Wise County, Virginia Ag Agent. And so Reed, I don't know how else to blow you up other than what I already have, so I'll just hand it over to you.
Absolutely. Well, I sure appreciate it, Shad, and I appreciate you all's invitation. I know sometimes for programs it can be really hard to find speakers, and definitely flattered by the opportunity to get on here and speak about firewood tonight. So I get on here, see if I can share my screen real quick, and go ahead and get started. Okay. You guys see that good? Go ahead
Yes.
and play. All right. Well, like Shad said, my name's Reed Graham. I've been at the Breathitt County Extension Office for about 6 years. If you could describe me in one word, if you ask Shad and Jeremy, they would probably say firewood. So I've got involved in firewood with my parents. They heated their house with firewood, so I was helping like a champ from a really young age, just packing in wood, starting fires, things like that. I'm a little bit of a pyromaniac, so it really came natural to me to get more involved in firewood. And through FFA, my local advisor really encouraged me to try to start a business out of my interest and passion. So I did. It was my supervised agriculture experience in FFA. Um, just started out pretty small. My dad and I, we would, sell 20, 30 cords a year for people for home heat. I guess that was really good spending money to me. I really never had a full-time job or anything like that until I got in college. And so firewood, it was what paid for my extracurricular activities all through high school. I went to college. Was getting an ag degree, and the department head of our college over at Morehead State University, he had a connection with the park manager at a state park here near where we live, and they were actually looking for a firewood vendor at the time. So he put us in contact with that guy. So definitely gotta give him a lot of credit. We've been selling firewood to that state park for about guess about 15 years now. So it's been a huge break for us. It's a really busy park. That's where we started selling bundled firewood. So we were always just traditionally selling home heat, which is more of like a bulk wholesale type business. There's a lot of competitors here in that, but when we got into bundles of firewood back in 15 years ago, that was really a new thing for this area. So we started out pretty small doing that, just to one park. We picked up a couple convenience stores since then. We're doing about 10 to 12,000 bundles a year now. And then we're still selling some cordwood for home heat. And I'll talk about some of the reasons why that's a pretty good business model when I get into the presentation. But I want y'all to know I've got some credibility because I've got a lot of experience in this. So I pulled a lot of extension resources for this presentation now, so you'll kind of see that as I go along. But first thing to talk about is why you would want a firewood business. Before I go into that, though, I do want to tell you I'll talk some about storm cleanup and how to use storm cleanup. I know a lot of the areas that are probably listening in got hit by Hurricane Helene. I saw some of that damage firsthand. We took a relief trip to North Carolina a couple months ago, and man, that was just very devastating. Just something that I really had a hard time seeing. But when I got to thinking about it, it was like, a lot of good firewood trees on the ground may not be big enough to use for logs. So maybe that's something that could help you all along the way. So um, really one of the reasons though that we got into the firewood business on our farm is was to diversify our farm. So you weren't putting all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. You can, have have a side income from something that you may not have to work year round on. I mean, if you're doing home heat, it's probably going to be a really busy time right now, the middle of the winter. You're going to be splitting firewood through the summer to try to get some good seasoned wood for your customers. You may have a good stacked up and be ready for when storms hit like what we've had this week or major cold spells. And that's really when you could profit well from doing that. But it allows you to do it on in times that it may be a dead time on your farm or for another business if that's what you have. Woodland management. So I think this is probably one of the most important things. When we got into the firewood business, my dad had a farm logged, so we had a lot of treetops, just a lot of wood waste that was going to rot otherwise. We were able to use all that and sell that product. So that was really important to us. But I pulled this from Cornell Extension in talking about management. So with best management practices, forests can deliver relatively inexpensive fuel year after year, between a half and one full cord per acre, while at the same time being improved and encourage the growth of high quality tree species. It can also hold back the spread of invasive species and create optimal wildlife habitats. So, if that's your goal for your woodlands, a firewood business could play in really well to selecting trees that maybe aren't useful for anything else. And I know Jeremy's really and Shad are really interested in maple syrup. So, if you're selecting for maple syrup, you may want to take out some oaks to let more sunlight in for those maples. And will the smaller oaks be really, really useful in firewood business? So, I had to throw in exercise because I joke a lot about that with my wife. That we work office jobs. I mean, I'm an extension agent. I get out in the field a lot, but I don't exercise a lot. So this is kind of our exercise. I mean, if you don't think it's exercise, grab a chainsaw. Most of the saws we use weigh 15 to 20 pounds and start walking up and down some hills. And I think you'll think otherwise. So you can exercise and get paid for it. I mean, people pay for gym memberships every day. It's the first of the year, that's really the hot topic, at least at our extension offices. Going, meeting those, getting those classes in and stuff. And I never go because I'm getting my exercise at home, cutting and splitting firewood. So another reason could be really good supplemental income for you. I know it definitely has for us. It has for a lot of people that I know that's in the business. Firewood can be really profitable and it mostly because it's a lot of hard work. So some things that you'll need before you get started. I put customers as number one because just like any other business, you're not going to have a successful business if you don't have some customers. So building those relationships before you really start in heavy, I think is one of the most important things you could do. You'll need some facilities. So a lot of people have wood yard. It could be as simple as your backyard. It could be a gravel lot somewhere where you can get in when it's wet and work. It'd be nice to have a barn so you could do some of the work inside, but you don't have to have that. Excuse me. The next thing is a business plan. This is something that, you know, we talk about this a lot in my job because Kate, the county agricultural improvement program, they want you to have a business plan. They want you to sit down and do that with a professional. That could be an extension agent, but the business plan could be as simple as I plan to cut trees and sell wood to make money. But a detailed business plan could really dive into what your profit margin needs to be, what your expenses, what you plan on those to have. So you'll know when you think about getting a loan or something for this business, to have a business plan could be really invaluable. Labor, that's something that you could provide yourself. You could hire somebody, multiple people maybe if you grow your business. I don't think it's bad to say that labor is probably going to be one of your biggest challenges to find skilled labor and labor with work ethic, but I think that could be true for about any business these days. Lastly is the source. So if you don't have a good source for wood, that's probably going to knock you out of starting a firewood business. I know we're t talking about this after Hurricane Helene. We're talking about it after an ice storm we just had. A lot of people will let you come onto their land and source firewood. I know there's tons of places that you could do that. Tons of landowners that would love to see their trees be used for something. You may have to pay them a little bit, but that could be a really good source for you. Another source though is loggers. The demand for low grade hardwood timber anymore has been really beat down. There's several reasons for that, but I mean, I'm here to tell you, I buy logs from time to time when I find some relatively inexpensive close to me, and it's you can still be profitable in buying logs, but I think it's always better to try to source those a different way if you can to try to manage your woods with it. But another thing I didn't put in here, but it's definitely equally important, is you need a way to properly season firewood. So when I dive into the types of firewood that most people sell, um, seasoned firewood is definitely something that you can add a ton of value on the firewood on your farm just by having seasoned firewood. So another thing, strong back, good work ethic. I think I already talked about that in labor a little bit, but if you don't have those, you're probably not going to do very well in the firewood business. So here's some other things you'll need: a chainsaw. If you're going to run a chainsaw, you'll need some personal protective equipment. Shad did a really good job. They had a chainsaw safety class up in Letcher County about a month ago. It to teach you the techniques you'll know. This isn't something, running a chainsaw is not something you're just going to no, I mean it's something that is a technique. So, check your extension office. They could offer classes around this. I know when I was in, I've done several other jobs, but one of my previous jobs, we had a chainsaw instructor come in. They talked about running a chainsaw safely. So, I definitely want to look into that, but that's probably something you're going to need. I mean, a good chainsaw is going to cost you quite a bit of money. So, being able to use that chainsaw, having a good product, that's something that's definitely important. You're gonna need a splitter or a maul. I start thinking back about my dad. 25, 30 years ago, he was using a split maul to split all of our wood for home heat, and we were burning 5 to 10 cords a year. But right now, my wife and I, we sell, over 100 cords of firewood. Splitting it with a maul and a sledgehammer is really not something that we're looking forward to doing. We're probably not going to be able to find the labor to do that. So a good log splitter, firewood processor, something like that, is definitely something you'll probably need if you're going to stay in the business very long and grow it. The next thing's a cant hook. I can't tell you how many times um, people don't have these, but this is something that could really save your back. It's a log roller. It's a common term for it, but um, just when you start cutting up logs, if you have a can hook, it will save your back so much stress. So I put that on there, and they're relatively inexpensive. Most people that burn firewood around me anyways, they don't have a truck, they don't have a trailer, so that's probably something you're gonna need to look at if you start a business around firewood. It's getting a truck, getting a trailer so you can deliver that to your customers, and that'll give you a little bit more flexibility with when you can deliver. A lot of people don't, you don't necessarily have to have them at home when you deliver, and you're gonna have to probably be at your wood yard when they pick up if you set it up that way. So the last thing I put on here, you can see in my slides, that's some pictures I took. Moisture meter. So that's something you can pick up for less than $20. They work really well. You really don't know what moisture you have in your firewood until you measure it. So I just snapped a picture one day of some, I've done this presentation a couple times before, one of the presentations, some bundles we had on a trailer. Um, to see what we had. So it was a little over 15% moisture. That's well seasoned firewood. That's what you should be selling if you're selling seasoned firewood. So you really won't know that if you don't have a moisture meter. Some other things, if you get into bundles like what we have, you'll need a bundler. Like everything else, they've gotten a lot more expensive over the years. You've got to have some wrapping material that could be like bags, it could be, you know, people make them up out of handles, plastic, something like that. You'll need fuel and oil. with one of the things we've got on our farm is a winch. We pull out most of our logs with a farm tractor, and we bought a winch, a 3-point inch winch. And I didn't have one of those for a lot of years, but that's something that I really wish we had bought sooner, because you can take the cable out and hook up logs, and it'll come to your tractor. So it kind of digs in like what a grater blade would if it was turned backwards. So it's a lot more safe if you're gonna pull logs small scale with a winch, with a tractor. Having a winch is something that's really worth its money. So, um, yeah. So green firewood. If you just go out and cut a tree that's living in the forest, it's gonna be about 75% moisture. So, getting that firewood down to 20% or less moisture is something that's really key. And different species of wood will take longer or a shorter time to season, and you'll kind of learn that as you get in the business. But some of these items that can be really expensive. We need a loan, maybe not. That's something that that's why I said you should probably need a business plan. So the business of selling firewood, this is something that you may have never considered it. So I thought I'd dive into this a little bit more. But there's several different models. You can sell by the cord. So that's like, I want half a cord of firewood. What really hurts us in the firewood industry is a lot of people sell by the truckload. And I'm here to tell you there's a lot of variation to be had in selling by the truckload, because you can really fool a customer, um, by selling by the truckload. And people advertise a lot of times a truckload for $50, for example. Well, there may not be a wheelbarrow load of firewood in that truckload of firewood. So we always try to sell by the cord, and I would definitely recommend you selling by the cord so that your customers know what they're getting. So I'll dive into a little bit more definition about that in a minute. But you can also sell by the bundle. Seen bags, that's become a lot more common. Sacks, buckets. People just tie them up with string sometimes. That's a different model. Roadside stands, dive into that in a minute, but you may want to consider a combination of these. So, selling by the cord, a cord of firewood is 4 feet wide, 4 feet tall, 8 feet long, or a variation of that to equal the same amount of cubic feet. A lot of people in firewood, they cut their blocks of firewood, their rounds of firewood about 16 inches. So a cord of firewood would be three face cords, 16 inch wide, 4 feet tall, 8 feet long stacks. It's 128 cubic feet. It's a lot of firewood. If you went to counting pieces of firewood and a cord of firewood that was split, it'd be a lot. And it's heavy. So a cord of firewood weighs anywhere between 3,500 and 5,500 pounds green. So fresh cut firewood weighs a lot. If you can find a way to not haul that and season it, seasoned firewood for most of the species we have around Eastern Kentucky, weigh between 2,500 and 4,000 pounds. So it's not as heavy. A lot of trucks will haul between a quarter of a cord and a half of a cord is a big pickup load. If you stack it in, you could probably get more than half cord, but most people around us haul half cord loads. So it's, anywhere probably between about 2,500 and 4,000 and 2,000 pounds, in a half cord. So it's a big load. You need to be prepared for that. Um, but this is oftentimes it's less labor, so you could get by with not having to handle the firewood as many times. A lot of times in firewood, most of your profit margin is eaten up by the amount of times you have to touch a piece of firewood. So the less times you have to touch it, the less labor you have invested in it, and that could really make a difference in you being profitable or not. And this could also lend to a lot more potential customers buy firewood by the cord, because a lot of people are heating with firewood these days. And I think for a while there was a trend down in people heating with firewood, but with the more storms we're having, the more power outages we're having, it's starting to look better to a lot of people. And it's just, it's a good good warm heat. And I think that's what I hear more than anything. People that have had electric heat, they'll say it'll freeze you to death compared to wood heat. So another thing to consider though about selling by the cord is most of the time homeowners they won't buy until it's like fall type of year or the winter, like right now. So you're gonna have to get out in the elements and sell to them. So a lot of people they'll offer discounts similar to what the propane industry does in the summertime. Do like a summer feel of your woodshed to try to get some business in the summer so you don't have to get out in the middle of the winter and do it all. The next way to sell, the next model we'll talk about is selling by the bundle. Really, what you're doing there, you're catering to convenience. You're taking a lot of times the same or similar firewood, seasoning it, and putting it in a place that is convenient for people. So you see these a lot of times at convenience stores, campgrounds, hardware stores, restaurants, other retail locations. A lot of times they'll sell by the bundle. I've seen them at Walmart now, a lot of grocery stores. So there's multiple ways to bundle. There's shrink wrap, but you can also bag. That's become a lot more popular here lately. It doesn't offer a lot of protection from the elements like the shrink wrap does. You can see on the trailer here. It'll protect the firewood pretty well from the elements if your customers are storing outside. The bags don't really offer that, but there's people that are just string tying firewood. They'll put two or three strings on it, tie it together. It's pretty labor intense, but it'll work. Some people are placing it in buckets. That'll work if you got enough buckets, but this is often sold wholesale. And the reason for that is most of the places that are really convenient for people aren't places that you can easily get in and retail your product. So, one last thing on selling by the bundle, this firewood needs to be clean. It needs to be well seasoned, because there's nothing worse than a customer getting a bundle of firewood and paying retail price, which is usually really expensive anymore, and them not being able to get that to burn. So, consistent length pieces, consistently seasoned firewood, clean firewood, not a lot of mud on it. That's some of the things that you would get complaints on if you didn't have that and selling by the bundle. So, but there is definitely more profit potential there because there's more labor in it. There's not as many people doing bundles of firewood. It's a great way to sell undesirable species of firewood. So I put that in there because you can sell, not a lot of people are looking for example, yellow poplar. Not a lot of people are looking for poplar for firewood to heat their homes because it pops and cracks. There's not as many BTUs, heating elements in that firewood as there would be like oak, which is, really plentiful too. So they wouldn't pay the same amount of money for a load of that as they would a load of oak. But you can put poplar and bundles of firewood, and people love it. Pops and cracks, it dries out quick, it's lighter. It's great for bundles of firewood, but like I said, not a lot of customers are going to look for that when buying it for home heat. So downside, it's more labor than other systems. You're going to have to handle the firewood at least another time or two probably to get those bundles in a retail location. Already hit on this. It requires seasoned firewood, consistent pieces, and it's going to require additional equipment. So you're going to need a bundler. You're going to need some plastic. You're going to probably need some kind of place to work a little bit more to make that bundle than what you would if you just sold by the cord. So the last thing I'm going to hit on is a roadside stand. I've seen a lot of these, and it is all about location. Location, location, location. If you don't have the right location for a roadside stand, it would not be successful. Where I live at the end of a dead end, one lane county gravel road, 20 miles from the nearest destination, that's not a good place for a roadside stand. But if you're like 2 miles from a state park on the main road, getting there, you've got a good pull off spot, that could be a good place for a roadside stand. Um, Usually people do these similar to the one I've got in the picture, a mate box, a set amount of firewood. But you could do bundles that are pretty easy too. And some people they'll sell, multiple products in one spot. So they'll sell their bundles, they'll bag up some kindling, maybe they'll do barbecue bags, they may do fire starters, something like that. Sell it all in one spot. So it'll probably require frequent restocking, or at least that should be your hope. Um, One thing to note though is the profit potential is very high here. And the reason I put that is because you are selling your product at retail. So whatever you set your price for, you should be able to retrieve all that money. So one thing to think about though is there any retail regulations around that in your city or your county? Possibly could be. You may need business license, you may need insurance, taxes, you may have to collect that for certain entities, stuff like that. So, honor system for payment, do you really want to do that? I know a lot of people have done that in the past that I know, but is that the best bet? Most people have credit cards now as a method of payment. How can you handle that? That's something that, um, those are all good questions that you would need to answer in your business plan if you plan to do this. So, I'm just going to jump into the environmental benefits of firewood because I think they're there. Um, Firewood is really considered carbon neutral. So as the carbon cycle goes, trees they absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. They take it down. They produce logs, chips, pellets. They pro they produces trees. So you cut those trees down, you burn that in the form of firewood, and then carbon dioxide is released back in the atmosphere, but no more than what is taken out of there. And as a matter of fact, it may be less. So um, there's not as many transportation costs involved in firewood because most people can get firewood pretty close to where they live. Most people that are burning firewood, they've started burning it because it's a cheaper form of heat, and that's because there's not as many transportation costs in it. And there's not as much stress on infrastructure. Most people don't ship firewood in semi trucks. They ship it in pickup trucks that are pretty low impact on infrastructure in these smaller communities. So here's another fun fact for you. And this is the biggest reason I like firewood is you can store it for years with little to no degradation. That means you can put a stack of firewood as long as it's covered or up off the ground, elevated like on pallets or just a gravel stack. You can store it for years and it will be probably just about as good 2 or 3 years from now as it was today. It may be a little bit over seasoned, it may burn up a little bit quicker, may have some insect damage. You can always work with your county extension agent to control the insects that are bothering it. But if something happens, it's still just sitting there. What's the worst thing that's going to happen to a stack of firewood? It blows over and you have to restack it. If you have a 1,000 gallon tank of gas or used motor oil or something, that's what you're heating with, and you get a leak in that tank, it's a big deal for the environment. So I really like that about firewood. There's not a lot of risk to the environment, and you're kind of using something that's already in your environment when you do that. So, the benefits of customer demand, I just put a little slide in there because I feel like it's a great time to get in the firewood business. It's getting easier, it's getting safer to burn firewood. There's these outdoor firewood boilers now. They heat the water. The water, then comes in your home, radiates through a little radiator, and then goes back out as cool water. The boiler then calls for more heat, and the exchange process works. You can put those a long ways from your house, so you don't have to worry about bringing all the bugs in your house, bringing all the mess in your house, bringing the risk of fire in your house. So that's helped the firewood business and customer demands. We've got several customers now that have outdoor boilers, and that's really nice. You can cut the pieces longer, split the pieces bigger, so it's a little bit more economical for a firewood vendor. And the buy local movements. So buy it where you burn it. I mean, that's been a big push since the Emerald Ash Borer came into Kentucky. It's been probably 10, 12 years ago, something like that. It started, this buy it where you burn it movement really started, and it should have started a long time ago because firewood is one of the biggest sources of moving invasive insects. The emerald ash borer, I talked about that one, but the Asian longhorn beetle travels in firewood a lot too. Um, Stopping moving the movement of firewood more than, your county, couple counties over could be really beneficial to the environment. So after that, I'm going to dive into a little bit of why you would want to use trees that are on your farm. They're already down. Like I said, when we got started, we were doing treetops from a logging operation. The roads are already there. It was just going to rot if we didn't use it. But we've had a lot of storms here lately. Hurricane Helene was one. Got a ton of trees down here. I know you guys do too, probably from that. The recent ice storm. I mean, we were talking before this started about trees down from that, so you guys may have not gotten the full force of it. But if you're in central Kentucky, you probably got a ton of trees down right now from the ice storm. So, say when you're cutting damaged trees, though, safety should be your number one priority. Um, if you're out cutting trees that have been damaged from windstorm or an ice storm, you really need to survey your environment because there could be a lot of things that could really negatively impact your life. The woods are a great place to get hurt, get killed. And you start seeing see the tree that's down here. I mean, there's more trees right beside it. I just pulled up there and snapped that picture. I didn't end up cutting that tree that day because there was more trees that I felt like it was a good condition for more to fall. So getting in there when it's safe after a storm is what I would recommend, unless you're a trained professional. Using what's damaged may not always be desirable. So like the picture shows that tree. It's just an old pine tree. It's real knotty, crooked. Um, Probably not something you're gonna use in the firewood business. But like when Hurricane Helene came through, a lot of good oak trees got uprooted that could be great for firewood. So timeliness is key here. I put that in there because insects they love down trees, especially if they're in contact with the soil. That'll cause a lot of rot. That's not anything you really want if you're dragging out the trees. So you want to try to get in there in the first few months if you can. I would say at least a year. If it's an oak species, it'll last a year pretty easy on the ground. But I would still try to get those out to my log yard if I were you. Fun fact, hickory, it rots really quickly. If it's left on the ground, you'll have some bugs get in it, and in a year, it's almost unsalvageable. I thought this would be a good time too to talk about compression versus tension with chainsaw. If you get to cutting these storm damaged trees, you're gonna have a lot of tension, a lot of compression. So the tension is what is on top of the tree normally if it's laying the way the one is in the picture. And so that could, cause a pop, cause a lot of damage to your chainsaw. And then compression. Compression is usually what will hang your chainsaw. So if you get a chainsaw hung, I've got some pictures here in a minute. A lot of times that's the reason that that's happening. So, Windfalls, this is something that I've seen a lot of here lately. Seems like we just keep getting more storms. This is like the complete tree. It's broken off. It's uprooted, like the one in the picture. It may be due to rot, though. It may not be because we had super strong wind gusts. It may be the fact that the tree was pretty susceptible to uprooting or rotting or breaking off because it's rotten. So that tree may not be the one that you would want to use in a firewood business. These will take extra time though. A lot of that time will be probably because they fall in an undesirable way. If you're falling trees in a forest, you can control where they fall. If Mother Nature falls the tree for you, you really don't have a choice on that. So you're gonna have to spend some time cleaning up the tops a lot of times, and the stump. So take extra time, but start at the top. I always like to do that because that top usually has less tension and compression than the stump near the stump would. Another thing to look for on windfalls is if you wait till the summertime, underneath the trees, a great place for snakes to hang out. So if you don't like snakes, that's definitely not going to be something that you want to get into right in the middle of summer. And then the risk of stumps that roll. So if the stumps aren't really tied to the ground, we've got hills in eastern Kentucky. The stump could really cause a lot of damage to you. So I got a little video here about cutting trees under pressure. I just found on YouTube. But it does a really good job of showing how to properly cut some trees that are under pressure. And it's really hard to explain, so I think you'll see it better when you watch this. So let's hope it plays. Can you guys see that okay?
It's not playing yet.
Okay, hold on just a second. I think I'll have to share that screen. Give me just a sec. All right, can you see like a tree now in your screen?
Negatory.
All right, hold on just a sec. Sorry about that. I've got it on
Hey
here.
Reed, hey Reed,
Yeah,
you're probably gonna have to pop out of your PowerPoint and then there you go.
There you
what
go.
about there? All right, let's watch this. So that's a pretty good example of how much time can really go into cutting a tree that's got a lot of tension or compression. He took his time, made several cuts, didn't get his saw hung. So that's one thing I would say about that. What could go wrong? Lots of things. Injury, death, all the above. You got five chainsaws hung. I think I always worry about people that go into the woods with like three chainsaws and what your experience level is, because you start getting three or four chainsaws hung. You know, that's probably gonna tell me all I need to know about your experience level. But it's dangerous. Cutting down trees that are storm damaged is probably one of the most dangerous things you'll do. And just because the trees have already fell over doesn't mean all the danger's gone. They could be just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than trees that are standing. So definitely something to think about. Here's some more broken tops. I put this in here because, you know, that's really, you know, something we're dealing with ice storms a lot. Some of these trees, however, they may recover. They may come out of it, do just fine. So you may not want to take those just for that reason. This is something that is very, very dangerous to work with, though. If you've got trees with broken tops, you know, that's going to be a disaster. If that top comes on out, if it's not broken completely out, like I said before, you need to have some PPE. Hard hat is a must if you're cutting trees that have, you know, any tops broken out, anything like that, tops hanging. You see that a lot in storm damaged trees. So I just got one more little video. Hope this kind of ties everything together, and then I'll take questions anybody has. But see if we can get this to play. Give me just a second. All right, is that showing up? Some guy's about to fall some trees.
Yep.
Uh, That's what I really, really hope comes out of this presentation is the domino effect in the fact that, you've had trees fall on your farm and you're able to take that and do a little domino effect where you then turn that into something that you could use either at your own home as a business in a firewood business, making logs. If you got some really good timber down, letting a logger come in, that's kind of domino effect. It's not something that you really wanted to happen, but it's making the best out of what you had. So, hope that helps. That's all I've got as far as slides, but I'm happy to take any questions. Shad and Jeremy, they both know I don't mind a bit talking about firewood or really anything. I was definitely blessed in that aspect of life. So, but here's my contact information. If you just want to shoot me an email, give me a phone call just to talk about it, talk about equipment, talk about your background, just talk about burning stuff. Like I said before, I'm a little bit of a pyromaniac, so just love, anybody that carries a lighter that don't smoke is probably got a dose of pyromania in their blood, and that's me. So, um, that's who I am. That's a little bit about firewood, and like I said, I hope you can use some of the trees that have been damaged in these storms to your advantage, but definitely do it safely because that's something um, that can be one of the most dangerous things you do. So that's a picture of my little helper there. Like I told you before, my wife Heather's in firewood business with me, but raising a generation of somebody that hopefully will help us some too and is interested. So
Yeah, we all know John Henry's the boss. So,
that's the boss for sure. I'll stop sharing now.
Reed, thank you very much. That was a good presentation. Are there any questions? You can, if you don't want to talk, you can put them in the chat box.
Reed, great stuff. Glad you mentioned the chainsaw safety. When you're doing this, or you're going to start doing this, it's definitely a plus there. So that's awesome.
Yeah, are you guys thinking about having another one of those classes, Shad? I know that was really good, that you had there a month or two ago.
We're talking about doing one in the spring, and we've already talked to Mike about doing one. And what he had in mind was possibly doing like rope and that kind of thing. Um, he kind of wanted to do a trail because there were trail folks present going out somewhere where there were active trees down and working on those. But um, we definitely will do another chainsaw safety class at some point, either through the summer or maybe in the fall.
Cool. That's a
We'll
good
do it
idea.
before we have to worry about snow preventing us from doing the class.
You'll do it when you have to worry about snakes next time, right?
And yellow jackets.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Okay. Well, Jeremy has notified me that there is a game of some sort going on tonight. I can't imagine what that might be. Uh, Possibly Kentucky, Georgia. But anyway, thank you for being on here, and Reed will make you famous now. Um,
You don't have to worry about that. That's not at all my goal. Just trying to help people. So anybody needs me, just reach out. You guys can put them in contact if they don't have my stuff, my
okay.
info.
So I know Phil has a couple of folks on here, and if you have questions that you think of later, feel free to reach out to your county extension agent and in your county, and they'll get in touch with us. We can get you the answers that you're looking for. And if there's nothing else, we will say thank you to Reed and have a good evening. And I'm going to go work my buck stove. Enjoy this cold evening.
Thank you,
Sounds
Reed.
good. No, you're welcome. See you guys. See you,
See
everybody.